Hey everyone, and welcome to my review for The Eye of the World, the first book in the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. For some background history between me and the book, I bought the first three at Barnes & Noble about a year and a half ago, but because I had some stuff going on and I read a little slower than I do now. I still read slow, but I didn't read as slow as I did back then, and I wasn't as adjusted to Jordan's writing style. I want to start off with the negatives just because there's not that many and I want to get them out of the way quickly. As I mentioned before, the writing style for the book was a bit off-putting for me at first since it's not something I was used to. Jordan's style isn't really bad per se, and towards the latter quarter of the book I was more adjusted and I actually started to really like how it was written. The style problem for me made itself really apparent during the transitions from the quote-unquote real world to the dream world where the Balsamon scenes happen, and that's just because I found myself getting a little too confused and needing to read it over to understand what exactly was going on, and again towards the last half I got used to it. The descriptions for places and people felt a little too lengthy at times, and it also seemed to drag on occasionally. I love world building and stories, it's what draws me into it, but sometimes they just felt unneeded here. But I'm sure when I finish the series I'll probably come to appreciate them. That's just how I feel for now. I did feel the book started to drag right after the battle at Shadar Lagoth. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. The battle at Shadar Lagoth, with the group being split up into three separate groups. It did feel dreadful at first, which it's supposed to, since these are characters I like getting put into danger. But the start to the three plots didn't really hit that well for me. Moraine, Lan, and Neve's group kind of had it the worst, in my opinion. And what saves their plot is the development between Neve and Lan, but I'm going to talk to that later on in the positives. Perrin and Egwene's plot started decently, and I'm more forgiving to it because right when it starts to get a little tiring, we're introduced to a new character and get some really good development on Perrin and his wolf powers. I'm gonna call them wolf powers, but it's a little more complicated than that. We then see the traveling people, which adds some good lore and acts like a really nice breath of fresh air, because on the flip side to Matt and Rand's journey, it kind of just seems like everyone's hateful and mean to them. Rand, Matt, and Thom's story also starts a little decently, and it doesn't pick up until Thom is quote unquote dead, which actually really sucks because I really like Thom and I do hope he's alive. That's what I'm really hoping in the second book, is that we get a reveal that Thom is alive. I was sort of expecting him to come out of nowhere in the final scenes of the book, but that never happened, which isn't bad. You want that return to hit well, and so I assume giving it a whole book before he comes back would hit a lot more for me. My last negative is about the false dragon Logain. I just really felt nothing towards him. I'm not sure if we're supposed to feel anything towards him, but he's mentioned a lot, and so I'm feeling like we're supposed to care or feel threatened by him, but it just doesn't feel that way for me. Finally, to my positives. The character's just really good. I like Rand and his development from start to end. I'm glad he doesn't just accept all the magic and destiny stuff and he really just wants to go home and have it all be done with. I feel like if he was a character who was really hyped up to go do magic shit with the boys and stuff, it would kind of take away from the plot of the story for me. Not too much, but I think it does help that he's more of a reluctant hero for a lot of the book. And his decision at the end to leave just makes me really excited to see what he's doing in the next book, because it's like a stark contrast from how he wanted to go home, but now that he knows that he's some sort of dragon's son and about the one power that he can wield, he wants to stay away from everyone to not hurt them. I like that a lot. Egwene and Neve are in the same boat where I was a little indifferent towards them at first, but as we got more of them, I started to care a lot for them. Egwene sometimes felt like she didn't have much to do, but I do like that she stayed as strong as she can during all the stuff that was going on with them. It had a charming feel for me. Perrin started off as the weakest of the three main boys for me, but right now they're all about equal. I'm super excited to see how he progresses with his wolf telepathic abilities and his axe fighting. Like when we learned that he killed 2 children of light, that was sick as hell. It was also interesting to see how poorly he reacted to it, and it really felt like he was being conflicted by it, because there are times where it seems like he wants to talk to them and he's psyched out that he can talk to them, and then when we get to the green man scenes and when he starts getting those orange or yellow eyes, he seems more down and out about the fact that he has these wolf powers. On a side note, I loved it when Egwene mentioned that the wolves in Edmund Field were acting strange for a while ago. When that line came out during the breakout at the Children of Light camp, I just got super hyped up for it, even if it was just a small little throwaway line. Matt is an interesting case for me because he's the only one that actually takes the journey super hard to the point where he's depressed in Camelin. I know it's partly because of the dagger's influence on him, but it still humanized him a lot for me because it feels like it added weight to the stakes that were at hand. Also, him catching the Dark Friend's blade when they were being attacked in the staple, and then later on shooting the weird monster thing in the eye when they were being attacked in the blight just made it feel like Matt's always gonna come in clutch when he needs to, even if he feels down about the situation they're in. Moraine was cool. We just don't get much on her, so I can't say much, but she was cool enough for what she was. If I had to rank the main group, she may be towards the bottom with Loyal, and speaking of him, Loyal was also decent enough. Part of me wishes we got to meet him sooner, maybe before Camelin, so I could feel more towards him. But I do love how much he knows about history and how proper he acts and carries himself. And the scene at the Green Man's grave left a huge smile on my face when I saw him bring that one tree back to life to keep the Green Man's memory alive. Lana's one of my favorite characters in the book, by far, without question. There's just something about that brooding, badass warder persona he has that I love. He's also just generally cool as hell. Then we learn about his backstory with the Seven Towers and how he was originally meant to be a king before who I think was his aunt killed that entire city for greed. Then we see the climax of the connection building between him and Neve and his reasons for rejecting her. God, every line in that scene was poetry to my eyes as I was reading it. I just really like Lan, and if he dies, I'm probably gonna lose my shit. The action in the book was also pretty incredible, if I'm being honest. Lan fighting the Madral was an obvious highlight because it's Lan fighting a Madral. And then the worm chase and the fight at Shadar Lagoth and the final fight with the Forsaken were all just sick as hell. And the last one felt dreadful to read because I was like 80% sure someone was gonna die because even Moraine wasn't able to hold her own against the Forsaken. I know the Amazon show is coming out soon. I'm just excited to see the episodes adapting Shadar Lagoth because that entire sequence is just horror. Like, I love that location so much and how it's built up in the book. It just feels horrifying to be in a place not even Madral want to be at. And the reveal towards the end that Pat and Fane, the peddler from the very, very beginning of the book, I think like chapter 1 almost, the reveal that he was a dark friend from chapter 1 was just fucking crazy. Like, I was losing my shit reading that entire bunch of chapters. The final showdown between Rand and Balzaman was actually a tiny bit disappointing, but I didn't expect them to have a full-scale magic fight with how weak Rand is right now, but I did find myself being a little unsatisfied. I still thought it was cool, which is why I didn't mention it in the negatives. I just kind of wanted more than what we got. And I'm jumping around a bit, but the Blight is also an incredible location. It's probably one of the best in the book, with maybe Shadar Lagoth and tie with it. A lot of the locations were strong, and despite how I felt about Jordan's descriptions, they did make the settings feel full of life and culture. The backdrop of the red and white factions in Camelin makes that entire setting that much more tense because there's danger everywhere, even without monsters and dark friends actually being present. On a side note though, I've heard that the series follows the Lord of the Rings style for the first 4 books, but I haven't read the Lord of the Rings yet, so I don't want to mention it in the review portion, but I just felt like I should throw that out there. As far as what's coming, I have about 2 books I want to review before I get into the second Wheel of Time book, one of which is the first book in the Dresden Files series, Stormfront. I've read the first few chapters and I'm really liking it so far, so I'm going to try to have that review out soon. I also have one non-review idea coming, so keep a lookout for that in the coming weeks. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video whenever that comes out.